Florida is emptying out. If you've been trying to rent an apartment in Miami, Orlando, or Tampa lately, you might have noticed something strange. Suddenly, landlords are desperate. They're offering 2 months free, waiving fees, and practically begging you to sign a lease. Why? Because the great Florida migration has hit a wall. We are seeing reports that migration into Florida has dropped by nearly 80%, and landlords are reporting mass vacancies in counties that used to be the hottest markets in the country. What happened? Where did everyone go? And is this the crash everyone predicted, or just a pause? Today, we are breaking down the new census data, the insurance crisis that's driving people out, and what this means for your rent in 2026. Let's start with the headline number that has the real estate industry panicking. Migration into Florida has fallen off a cliff. For years, Florida was the #1 destination for people leaving New York, California, and Illinois. But new data from the U.S. Census Bureau is painting a very different picture for 2024 and heading into 2026. We are seeing a net outflow in key southern counties. Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach are all reporting population losses. This isn't just a slowdown, it's a reversal. Now, the 80% drop figure is the one circulating among landlords, and while it might sound sensational, the reality on the ground supports it. The influx of new residents has slowed so dramatically that the rental market, which was overbuilt during the boom, is now drowning in inventory. Landlords who bought properties at peak prices, expecting rents to keep climbing 10 or 15% a year, are now sitting on empty units. Let's talk about the mass vacancies being reported. I've spoken to property managers in Orlando and Jacksonville who say their vacancy rates have tripled compared to just 2 years ago. Buildings that had waiting lists in 2022 now have for rent signs cluttering the hallways. This is the supply and demand equation flipping. During the pandemic, demand was artificial. Remote work allowed everyone to move to a low-tax state, but that wave has crested. So, why is this happening? Why is the Florida dream turning into a nightmare for some? Reason number 1 is the insurance crisis. This is the silent killer of the Florida housing market right now. You cannot talk about Florida real estate without talking about property insurance. Homeowners insurance premiums in Florida are now the highest in the nation, averaging over $6,000 a year, and in many coastal areas, it's double that. But here's the thing. Landlords pass those costs on to tenants. A landlord who saw their insurance jump from $3,000 to $8,000 has to raise the rent to cover that nut. Tenants are realizing that the cheap rent they moved for is disappearing because the overhead costs for owners are exploding. When the rent on a 2-bedroom apartment in Tampa hits $2,800 because of insurance and taxes, people start looking at Georgia or the Carolinas, where they can get the same apartment for $1,800. Reason number 2 is the heat tax. I'm calling it that because it's real. The summers are getting longer and hotter, and the cost to cool a home in Florida from June through October is astronomical. We saw record-breaking heat in 2024. People moving from the north underestimate this. They see the sunshine in December, but they don't account for the $400 electric bill in August. Combined with the humidity and the increasing threat of hurricanes, the quality of life calculation is changing. Reason number 3 is the cost of living catch-up. Florida was sold as a low-tax haven, and it's true there is no state income tax, but everything else has skyrocketed. Groceries are more expensive, services are more expensive, and for renters, the fees are out of control. Application fees, administrative fees, pest control fees, valet trash fees, it adds up. The affordability gap between Florida and states like Tennessee, Alabama, or South Carolina has closed. Now let's talk about where the people are going. They aren't just staying put. They're moving to what I call the New South. We are seeing massive growth in Georgia, specifically the Atlanta suburbs and Savannah. We are seeing an explosion in the Carolinas, Charlotte, Raleigh, and even coastal South Carolina. These states offer a similar climate with lower insurance costs and, for now, slightly more stable housing prices. The Florida money has moved elsewhere. So, what does this mean for you? If you're a renter in Florida right now, you have leverage for the first time in 5 years. If your lease is coming up for renewal, do not accept the first number they send you. Look at the market. Look at the vacancies in your building. Landlords are terrified of another empty month. An empty unit costs them thousands in mortgage payments, taxes, and insurance. They would rather keep you at a flat rate or even a slight discount than lose you and sit empty for 3 months. Use this. However, if you're a landlord, this is a wake-up call. The days of automatic rent increases are over. You need to be competitive, you need to offer value, and you need to be transparent about costs, or you will be the one paying the mortgage out of pocket. The broader question is this a crash? I wouldn't call it a crash yet. It's a correction. The market got ahead of itself. Rents cannot outpace wages forever, and they cannot ignore the external costs like insurance. We are seeing the market reset to a new reality. Florida is still a desirable place to live for millions of people, but it is no longer the no-brainer investment it was in 2021. We are going to keep watching these vacancy numbers closely as we move into 2026. If insurance rates don't stabilize, we could see a lot more inventory hit the market as landlords decide to sell rather than bleed cash on empty units. Florida isn't empty, but the bubble has popped. The frenzy is gone, and for the first time in a long time, the power is shifting back to the tenant. If you're seeing this in your area, if you're seeing empty apartments or landlords offering deals, drop a comment below and tell me which city you're in. We're building a map of where the market is turning. Hit that like button if you want more real estate updates that actually tell the truth, and subscribe so you don't miss the next video. Thanks for watching.